Good evening. Welcome to Investigator News, and this is the World War III report. And of course, we got to get William in here. And William, good to see you. Except for I always get you in as bigger than me. I don't. Who's bigger, me or you?
I like having a big head. Just
I got short legs, so you can have the big head and me short legs. But we got William here tonight, and we got a lot of updates and talking about different things that the news isn't talking about today. Uh, and William is in the chat room, and um, I'm going to start with Armenia because that's kind of the newest thing with Nancy Pelosi over there, and then we got more Democrats going over there, um, and I believe Biden eventually, but it's just rumors now. Uh, we have this war between Armenia and, boy, I hope I say this right, Azerbaijan. They're two neighboring countries that are fighting again, and they have been for decades. And two countries have been at the center of conflicts for over the Nagorno Karabakh region. Now, both sides were engaged in armed territorial conflict until 2020. In 2020, there was a kind of a truce, and it was mediated by Russia. And now the conflict has started again with the both sides engaging in the worst clashes. And the latest reports, nearly 100 troops have lost their lives. And the deadliest violence of that both countries now blaming each other for the flare up. And world powers have urged long, um, they have basically been trying to talk to Armenia and, of course, this other country. And um, trying to get them to settle because when it first broke out, they did get a hold of world leaders and began telling them that, pointing the fingers at one another. Now, William told me that I, th- I believe this is what he was saying is Nagorno Karabakh is a mountainous region. It's between Armenia and Azerbaijan, and it lies entirely within the Azerbaijan borders, and it's internationally recognized as part of the country. But it's occupied primarily by ethnic Armenians, and the population is controlled by their forces. About 500, or I'm sorry, 50,000 people live there. And in 1991, the region declared independence, and since it had ruled itself with Armenian support, as unrecognized Republic of the Ar- Ar- Artsakh, Artsakh, and then a full-scale war erupted in 1992, and finally a ceasefire in 94. Um, so, despite the signs of progress towards peace, the fighting has erupted again, um, and they've killed more than they say um, I want to say 600 people and ended with a peace deal brokered by Russia. So now the region has become a huge war zone again, with intense shelling and artillery and large caliber firearms, military positions, and directions of the cities of Goris in the south of Gurmak. Meanwhile, the Azerbaijan says Armenia has been shelling and military positions for weeks now, and that they have intensified. So now world leaders have expressed concern to urge the stop of the fighting between the two countries. I do have a map. Uh, and good evening, Miss Karen. So let me pull up the map. All right, now let's see if I can get this bigger. There you go. So you can see kind of Armenia in the middle, and then Azerbaijan is on one side. And I had to even ask William about this. I said, there's two of them because there's one over by Iran, and then there's one Armenia, and then kind of by Turkey. And I wish now I would have had a bigger map, but this gives you an idea of where this is at. Now, William, you know more about what it is around it than I do. I had to
so
go.
right there where the where those red lines are is the Nagorno-Karabakh, that little region right there.
Okay.
And that's super mountainous. Now, most of Azerbaijan and all of Armenia is mountainous, very mountainous as well. But this is the very top of the mountains, and it's kind of the central location of what they used to call at one time, I think it was 101 churches, where they had so many churches just in one town. And, there were like 300,000 people that lived there. And now it's 150,000. At one point, 150,000 Azerbaijanis were pushed out. This was back in 1917. And there was also an Armenian genocide. 1965. Back in 1917, there was an Armenian genocide right after World War II. And remember that they had the Spanish flu, and it killed so many people. Well, that came through, and the Turks invaded Armenia, and then they were repelled back. And so it's been going back and forth like this. Actually, it hasn't been for the last couple hundred years. It goes back at least 3,000 years. This is one of the places where humans have inhabited one of the longest times on Earth. This is like Babylon. And the Sumerians.
And what it seems to me like is a lot of this is, well, let me put you back up and get rid of the map. Almost what we're seeing in Ukraine with Russia. It's kind of a back and forth battle, and they both say they're the ones that fired, not me. And this is what's been growing over the last couple of months. But see, they're seeing even all the way back to 2020, but it's just increased over time. So now it looks like that we're looking at helping Armenia, and that now we've sent Pelosi over there, and now there's talk of maybe military, sending over military equipment or aid to there to help them out. Now, we hear that Russia had a part of this. Now, my concern is, does Russia step in and help them, or does Russia not help them and NATO step in? It just seems like it's going to be another Ukraine. I thought it was going to be like Afghanistan, but this is a little different. It almost seems like the same back and forth.
This is even crazier because Armenia hires Russian mercenaries. Azerbaijan hires Russian mercenaries. The Russian mercenaries and the Russian mercenaries fight each other one day, and during the night, one side offers the other more money, and they change sides.
Wow.
So this goes back and forth. This is crazy. You're talking about an ethnic divide, a religious divide, a monetary divide, and kind of, the four corners of the earth type of divide. North, south, east, and west, with two seas on either side. And to make it worse, you've got Iran just to the south. You've got, Iran just to the east and south. You've got Iraq just to the south and west. You've got Georgia just to the north, and directly to the west you have Turkey. And none of these folks actually get along.
That sounds like the Middle East. What I was saying earlier is it almost sounds like over there in the Middle East where you got one side against the other, and there's no fixing it. And that's the same way with Russia and or some of the Russians that are on the Ukrainian border. They just don't get along.
This is basically a border skirmish, civil war border skirmish, where 80% is one ethnicity, 20% is the other ethnicity, and nobody wants to move, okay? And they're willing to kill each other as neighbors to make the other go away.
Yeah. Now this.
And they're willing to drag the rest of the world into it to fight their war. And so when there's a time of peace, Armenians run to the west, Azerbaijanis run to the east, and they get involved. Azerbaijanis get involved with China or with India or with Russia. The Armenians get involved with the Turks or Europe or the United States, and then they want all these other countries, okay, to come and fight their war for them, so they can win.
Well,
because
now this
actually
time, this time, William,
in 3,000 years.
Is they said when they seen what was going on in Ukraine, I don't know who it was that said it, but they were looking at Ukraine and seeing how NATO helped. That's the reason why they reached out to the West or NATO or the United States, or I should say they got hold of a lot of world leaders to come help. And they said that was why is what was going on in Ukraine. And to me, you know, William, this is a tiny country, and I don't think we need to be in the middle of it.
This is the reason why Ukraine has gone from being a regional skirmish to a global strategic problem. Because Russia has made it okay to cross the border to its smaller neighbor and try to take territory in the name of protecting people that are ethnically like them and have their ideas, that don't want to move and want to expel the other group. Now, there's places like that all over the globe. If we let Russia and Ukraine do it, all right,
more than 3 years,
they don't go back to the original borders, everybody else on Earth is going to think they can get away with it. And where are they going to run to?
Yep.
They're going to run to one of the three major powers,
well, see,
and try to get started in proxy war.
I think that it has a little bit to do with Taiwan, because Taiwan's so small too. So is Ukraine, and the world is flocking to them for these wars. And so why not Armenia? You know, that's because they sure came out of the blue, just wham. I had to go figure out where it was.
Korea? Why not Korea and China? Why not China and Japan? Why not Japan and the Philippines?
That's right.
See what I mean?
Yeah. Or Australia.
People, they have historic skirmishes throughout history, and they've had to live together, not wanting to be next to each other.
Yep. And so that's pretty much what's going on in Armenia, folks. It's, you know, it's a war that William said since biblical times, but from what is going on, yeah, really. Well, you know what? We could put them all over there in that little that they go around the thing, because that supposedly brings peace. And we just put all these countries over there, except for these. The thing about now the Armenia folks is they're Christians, and it's a Christian against Muslims. And so I think that's why they're reaching out. And, you know, I don't really know much about Armenia until today, or I'm going to say last 2-3 days of looking into it and reading on it. And, you know, I could see that they're reaching out for help, but at the same time, they should be, like every other country, building up their military, and they should be ready to fight, knowing this has went on since the 80s. You know, that's decades old of a fight. That's just like the same thing with Ukraine and Russia. Well, really, it's the Russian right on the border thing. So, so that's really a little bit of what's going on in Armenia, to give you an idea of why we're looking at going there. And I think maybe a little bit of aid and just let them go. I don't think the whole world and NATO and everybody needs to flock over there and choose a side and start all this, what's going on in Ukraine and what's going on in Taiwan, to happen. We don't need three wars. Um, you, the last thing we need is three
So
wars.
Huh? Both sides have heavy Soviet era weapons. Okay, they already have all the weapons they need. They just want somebody to come and break the stalemate.
Ah, I see. So.
But here's the thing: just to the south, Iran is in the middle of a near civil war right now with young people. They're in the streets, like the tens of thousands. There's people being jailed, killed, tortured right now because of protests. Then you go to Iraq, right next door.
They just went through
they're trying to come up with a new government as we speak. Then you look just to the north, you've got Georgia, someplace in here, we've got Chechnya, and today Russia decided that they're going to do a military call-up, people that already have military experience, and people are flooding out of Russia, places they can fly. They don't have to have a passport, like Azerbaijan, like Armenia. Russians are flooding in there right now because they're trying to run away from the war in Ukraine, and they're running right directly into another war.
Yeah.
That they can't escape if they don't have a passport. And if they don't have a passport and they want to go to a third country, like say Mexico and then the United States, like some people are doing, Russians are showing up on our border right now. As we speak, they were last night. Then they have to go back to a Russian consulate. The Russian consulate will know that they've been in the military, and they'll be grabbed right then and there. So they're going from one place they might be sent to a war zone to another place that's becoming a war zone.
Yeah. I don't think there's so many war zones. Just mentioning, what you did with Iran and Iraq, and then we got Syria, we got Israel, we got the Gaza Strip, we got almost everywhere is starting to have these little civil wars. And I agree with you there, William, where you're saying this has started these little civil wars, I believe, of one over the border, over their border lines. And this isn't good because we can't stretch ourselves out for a little. I mean, let's say Okinawa got upset at the ocean for being the ocean. Would we fight that war? I mean, that's kind of a silly way of putting it. But
well, the problem is pretty soon you got South American countries doing the same thing, African countries doing the same thing, and this thing will flare up and become a world war and become completely out of control.
Yeah, everybody will be fighting.
That's why Ukraine is a strategic problem right now.
Yeah.
And Russia needs to back up to borders because it's not just going to affect the United States. It's going to affect Russia. It's going to affect China. It's going to affect India. Anybody that's got an economy is going to lose in this thing.
Yeah. And so that kind of gives everybody an idea before it moves on, and it gives everybody an idea of what's going on. So you got a little bit of knowledge. So if something becomes of this, at least you got a little bit of info to know, hey, now I know what's going on over there. And we know that maybe Russia step in and help or step in and stop it. But Russia's got a Ukraine thing happening, and not only that, but they're looking at what you call the Red Pact, and looking at helping China defend off maybe a war over Taiwan. So I mean, Russia's plate's pretty full, and I just seem to think let's do the aid, but when we seen Pelosi and all of them rush over there, they did the same thing to Ukraine in 2015 15, I believe. They did the same thing. And then all of a sudden it built up and built up and built up over the years, and now we're in the middle of it. So, and speaking of Russia and Ukraine, now today, um, more news have come out about Lunks, and now it is part of Donbass. I want everybody to understand that Donbass and the Lunks is a part of it, in which it's a is a separatist health disputed area, and this is where Donbass is. Is it would be the bigger part, and then um, the there's a very small part of Donbass that is basically the big part of the news, and Ukraine is under the pretext of protecting Donbass, and the part along Lunks that fell to Russia in July, as of I think yesterday, Russia claimed full control of Lunks, and so what happened is the soldiers um, in that were basically when they had went into Donbass and taken it, the last few usually wear white helmets, and this is according to my reporters. So they knew when they seen the white helmet, and it has a cross on it. They say then they know that that helmet is a sign of counter offense, or they hit. This is the last, and they have basically gone into the country. And it's I hear it's a counter offense, but I hear it's saying that they have taken this part. Not to get too far into that. Um, what Ukraine has gained control of is a city named Horkovka, and it's a very small village in Lunks. And if you looked out on a map, it would be just a little dot. And so what Ukraine gained the victory of Lunks, and they had a great start. And not only that, Kyiv said they're preparing to retake all of Lunks. But then the separatists of Donbass have other plans. Now, the leader of this urged the counterpart of they say Luhans, to prepare for a referendum. And so this really shocked everybody over there, because they had never heard this out of Donbass. And they said they wanted to join Russia. So then, according to a lot of world leaders, they said, we want them on the phone, we want cameras on them, and we want it all recorded so we could see what's going on here. And basically, they said that um, they're self-proclaimed republics, the parliamentary. Uh, it's for them to work the steps that would allow them to start preparing for the referendum, and that now. What will be the game changing is because Donbass votes basically to join Russia. Then Russia will be able to utilize its full military capability in Donbass. Now, see, that is what they were saying no to. Um, and I'm not sure what Donbass is saying, but now they're saying they are planning to hold the referendum, and 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 the two have basically joined. Um, and this is Kherson also. So between Kherson, Donbass, and Lunsk, and the rest of them, they have now decided they are going to go ahead and do the referendum and join Russia. Now, this just came out today. And so basically, they want to, both NATO and the Kremlin want to question them. But see, at this point, what's being said is Russia says, well, when you guys went and talked to Ukraine, then all of a sudden peace talks were off. Now, they're afraid that if NATO goes in and talks on their own without Russia being there, that they're going to talk them into to doing what they want. Now, NATO says the same thing. Now, Donbass said, both of you guys stay away. We'll do the referendum with the rest of the group, and then we'll go from there. So now we know that now Donbass is a part of this. So That was a little bit of info I had that came in late this afternoon. Uh, so,
But the Ukrainian 50%, 40%, whatever in the area, they can't vote against it because there's a Russian outside with a AK-47. Are you going to go out and say, "Hey, get out
yeah.
of my yard"?
Yep, that's it. That's
No.
it.
There's no freedom to vote here. It's a referendum of one side. It's meaningless.
Well, I don't know about that because what the reporters are saying on the ground, and even the stories coming out of Kyiv from Ukraine is saying that they're really surprised because there are Ukrainians over there, and what I heard today is there are Ukrainians that are packing up and moving over the border, and they said the older people said it reminds them of when Russia took over a lot of different places, and everybody was walking the roads um, and to leave. And they said this just seems like this nightmare from 50 years ago. I guess it was in the 40s. William, I don't know history. So my only thing is the only thing I remember of seeing Russians leaving and walking down a road was on a musical. What was that musical? Is it Fiddler on the Roof? I don't even know if that was the same thing.
So during World War II, this whole region was pushed out of their homes. Poland, Ukraine area, part of Russia, all the way into Germany, south, almost to Italy, Bulgaria. Everybody was displaced. War pushed them all one way. Then when the war was over, they were all moving again the other way. People just taking over each other's property. It was chaos.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's chaos. I'm gonna have to get a hold of Eva and see what she says because she is over there. Last I heard, she was Donbass or Lunks. I'm not real sure. I would have to go look at her page and leave a message.
Near Kharkiv, where the Ukrainians just took back from Luhansk, then you're saying if you're a Russian sympathizer, the world's gone crazy. Now, if you're on the other side in Luhansk, where the Russians are, and you're Ukrainian, you're saying the world's gone crazy. It just depends on where you're at and what you want to be a part.
Yeah.
But it's neighbor next to neighbor who wants to have a different government but doesn't want to move to separate themselves from this different ideology. And it just leads to endless strife because they will kill each other until they wipe out every man on earth holding on to that piece of dirt.
Yep. That's what we were talking about earlier. Even if they pull out, they are still they don't get along, and they've been fighting for forever. It's a civil war. It's like, well, a good example is Hatfields and the McCoys. They wouldn't get along. They weren't going to give up the dirt, and they were going to fight till the end. And there are people in Ukraine and in these that are mixed in between Russian and Ukrainians, and that William, that's what we seen when in 2016 when the Russians left and went to Crimea. It was the same thing. They were fighting over the same thing. It's almost like the same group and the same ideal that no, I'm not leaving, but you can leave, and I'm not going to submit to your ways. You have to submit to mine. So it's really a civil war, and that's why I don't agree with us getting involved in Armenia, because then we're getting into the same situation. And even like, me and William has said, even if we separate the two, they're still neighbor against neighbor going to happen.
So the only thing that can be done is forcing Russia back to its original line and imposing upon them Okay, that a bigger country cannot assault a smaller country.
Mm-hmm.
And when you do that, you tell the rest of the world we're not going to tolerate this stuff anymore. Doesn't matter where you are. But if you let this thing go, it's like getting a divorce in the neighborhood. It becomes viral.
Mm-hmm.
You end up with a whole bunch of divorces in the neighborhood.
Yeah, and that's really what's going on. So, um, uh, it's going to be, they say it's going to take a couple days before everything is settled on this referendum. And I'm always good at, it came out, so let's just see what happens over the next few days and see if anybody changes their mind, or if they all decide to go with Russia, if that's what they want, or if they're going to go and say no, Ukraine, or if they're just going to just start up and back into war again, and there's nothing anybody can do about it. So, you know, get Brando out of office and see how things will change over there. Zelensky, yeah, he's, but Ukraine has never had a good leader for that country. Now Zelensky, I got to say, is the better of the bunch, because everyone before him was so corrupt and just ripped off every penny from the people. So now you got Zelensky in there. He seems like a hero to these guys. And I say, let Zelensky be the hero for him. And if maybe he will turn out to be a good leader. We don't know. I think it's too soon to tell. There's a problem of where the money's going. And there's lots of money and lots of military equipment that's just disappearing. And this is something he needs to answer to. It's his country, and he's receiving it, or the country is receiving it, and he needs to look into it, because that's a big concern even with the UN. Now, there was a UN meeting today. Uh, Putin wasn't allowed to go. He did make a statement and sent it. And of course, we heard from all the leaders. Now, the UN meeting today was supposed to be about world hunger. But since everybody got all worked up over Ukraine again, they switched it over to looking at making sure no one is going to do any nuclear wars, and that nobody is, that they're going to push for peace and negotiations. So our world hunger just got put on the sideline. They did address it a little bit, but it wasn't like they were supposed to address it by the world leaders. So,
So the UN wants to look at it two different ways, okay? One way is they're saying, let's be like Mr. Rogers, put on our shoes and our sweater, and we'll talk about it, all right? And that'll end it. And then there's another group that's saying, well, if you don't come up with a big fist and stop this, this is never going to end. So you've got people that are humanitarian in spirit that want this to end. You've got military people that want this to end. And as long as this is fighting back and forth in this small tit-for-tat way with incrementalism, they will burn up every last military piece of hardware on the planet and get nowhere unless a major power steps in with a strong military and air force and ends this thing. Otherwise, Russia and Ukraine will keep going until neither one exists.
Yeah.
Both will be it'll be a barren moonscape, and they'll call that peace. What good is that if it bankrupts the rest of the world?
Yeah. Now, also at the UN, the Iraqi foreign minister, he urged Western countries to continue chasing the remnants of ISIS until the organization is completely eliminated, because it presents a threat to humanity. And they said that we need to take this seriously. But once they became a part of the problem, and not only did they got weapons now in their hands, that they are going country to country, and they grab up every bit of military equipment they can. But then they even, I say pillage, because they go in and they take everything, money, anything of value, and it has to do with their culture, is what this Iraqi um, foreign minister Fuad Hussein told quite a few of the reporters at I guess at the UN, when they were doing interviews on the sidelines. He said, so we must fight ISIS. Not only fighting ISIS on the military field, but military means. He says we need different kinds of education. So the fight against ISIS as is not an ideology, but we do need to do more. We need to different platforms and talking about this, because at the end, it's a threat to humanity, because they kill, they behead, and they just won't stop. And almost anybody can hire them to kill. And so this is another thing that happened, was the big warning at the UN meeting um, from the Iraqi Minister of Foreign Affairs. So, William, that kind of surprised me. So go ahead.
So if the United States and Russia are at odds, how can we cooperate in Syria?
Yeah, that's right.
To hold down ISIS.
That's right.
I mean, how is that going to happen?
Yeah.
That can't happen. How are we going to make sure that Iran doesn't go nuclear and set off the unthinkable, and Israel do the same thing? And what do you have in the middle of West Asia? Is it good for Russia? Is it good for the United States? Is it good for China? It's good for no one.
No. And Syria is I call it the Heinz 57 war, because I watched it when they had moved up through Iraq and then they went into Syria. Then I was watching it, and it was like China was involved and Turkey was involved and we were involved and Iran was involved, and it was like, whoa, why is everybody? It was almost like what we see now. It was like everybody was going to Syria to fight this war, and it was all going after ISIS. And then then we heard during Trump that he chased them out. Well, then we heard they were in Pakistan. Then we heard of this ISIS 2, I think is what Biden called it. And then they're all chuckling and saying, no, it was just ISIS. It was never a second part. It's always been ISIS. It's just ISIS over here and ISIS over there and here and there, and they're everywhere. And that's what this Iraqi, this is what the Iraqi minister was saying, is that
if you think about it, and you want to start a caliphate, and you're ISIS, and you can live off the land wherever you go.
Yeah,
that's a smart tactic.
Oh yeah,
and you just fill every void. You don't have to fight the big powers. You just suck up everything that can be grabbed easily.
Yeah, like a scavenger, a pack rat.
Yeah,
pack rat.
It's vulture warfare.
Except for these, they behead people. So anyway, so now we're hearing that Iraq has stepped forward. And I didn't know. When we had the protesters there, and this was a couple weeks ago, that went ahead and took over the Iraqi palace, and then this comes out, and I looked all over to see if was that ISIS that did that, and I couldn't really find any proof on it. But this, he was real serious. There's a interview of him on I believe it's Fox News. They did an interview with him at the UN meeting, and he's real serious about this. So I wanted to get that, because that was big news, I guess, at the UN today. And the other was how quiet China is, and then Taiwan has come forward and said, no, it's getting worse. But they wouldn't say what the worst was. They just said they're having to build up their military a little bit more. They're in. Now, William, I meant to ask you about this on the phone. Taiwan said final stages of exercises. Now, I don't know if they're just wrapping up another round of exercises, but they just made that little statement, and that was it, as they were wrapping up their final stages of exercises. So now, and I couldn't remember who.
Most nations most nations every year, their military go through what they call an evolution of training, and so it could be that they're just finishing up their last major evolution until the next scheduled evolution, or they're worried about China because China's finishing their last evolution.
Yeah.
And they're all trained up.
Yeah.
I don't know which.
Yeah. And then let me see. Make sure I'm not missing anything here. Then lastly, it would be Iran and this um, this deal that they're trying to pass through. And what I'm really starting to find out is the fact that, they want to go back to the Obama agreement. And I went and I looked at the Obama agreement and I sent it to William today and I looked at it. And really, it's just telling them that they're going to hold some sanctions on them and that they just cannot make nuclear weapons. Now, they have a large supply of lithium. Is that what it is? Or uranium? Uranium.
Uranium.
Okay. And they have lots and lots
uranium.
of it. And now, when they're spoken to, they said, "Oh no, it's for energy. It's for other uses," and that's all they'll admit to. And then, of course, we have quite a few. I mean, it's not just us that question it. There's quite a few other countries that are saying, "You got so much of it, you could easily make a warhead." And now I talked to William on the phone and I said, I think they're making them. And I gave my reasonings for it, but when you look into it, even one of his name is, I think, Baharani. He is said they talk this all the time. They have for decades. They say they've got uranium and they're going to make nukes and they're going to blow people up. They just bark like that. And I looked and I looked, and even when you look into it, they got the stockpile. They don't want the inspectors looking at anything. They block them for the most part. But is that to now this guy? He was saying, maybe they just do that just to make everybody think they're bigger. Now, William, I know you have a lot to say on how Iran is. So I'm going to go ahead and let you go on Iran and nukes.
So Iran has developed drones that have long reach. They've developed ballistic missiles that have a long reach. They're medium range ballistic missiles. They can reach Israel. They have a huge stockpile of uranium. They have a reactor. They have plenty of fluorine. That's what they use to kind of melt the uranium into a gas. Then they run it through a magnetic centrifuge. And once they get enough of that made to 90%, then it's fissionable. That means they can use a concussive blast or uranium against uranium to create a nuclear bomb. And all they have to do is make that small enough, strap it on a missile or a drone, and it would be bye-bye to Jerusalem.
Yeah. Now you said, didn't you say it was about, they just make it about the size of a grapefruit? I just thought it was like massive amounts.
They used to be huge, half of a freight train car, and that's the size of what Hiroshima and Nagasaki were. But they've got smaller and smaller and smaller over time. Now these nuclear physicists, they've been trained in the West. They've learned our sciences, and they've taken it back home and are working in the dark. So they're not Iranian trained scientists. They're Western trained scientists. just like the Pakistanis and the Indians were.
Mhm.
And India and Pakistan have fine ballistic missiles. They both were able to purify their uranium-235. And then if you add, a little bit of hydrogen on that, then you don't just have a Hiroshima type thing. You've got a big boomer, and those are devastating weapons.
Mm-hmm.
Those will hang parts. Whatever they hit, they will hang the dust of whatever they hit in the atmosphere for 10 and 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
All the way above the stratosphere. These are incredibly dangerous weapons. And you put that in the hands of somebody that's just a zealot.
Yeah.
That cares nothing about the secondary or tertiary fallout from these things. And they don't care if the planet goes up in smoke.
No, Iran don't. They're kind of like ISIS. They're just brutal. And they don't care about the people, just care about what they can get or the power they can gain or the money. And now, William, now what I did find was there was one of the inspectors. I don't think he's still part of the group that. Now, this one was, I think, from 2013. It was one of the earlier ones, and he has been around. I don't think he's an inspector anymore, but he's around where he's able to look at things in Iran. Now, he was saying about underneath one of the bases, or where the uranium is, that underground, that they have got way more than what they have let the inspectors on to, and that this is what the inspectors want to see, but they're denying it's there. And every time they get close to being able to go, having them admit they have it, they start chasing them out. Now, and that's, it's coming from not just them, but then we got Israel, but Israel hates Iran. But then we're starting to hear it from the people themselves. And like you were saying, they're brutal with their people. They torture them, they starve them, it's genocide. And, I think all these countries are just into this hurting their own people to get what they want. And some of the people have even said that this underground facility, and this is where they're putting the nuclear warheads together, but they're only admitting to just the last few weeks. So, and that kind of coincides with what everybody said. They said it could have been weeks or a month that they could possibly get the materials and start maybe thinking on making it. So,
What makes this so dangerous is they're doing this 100 feet underground, and smaller countries can't stop them.
Nope.
They don't have the penetrator weapons to do it.
Mm-mm.
It takes big aircraft with big conventional weapons, if you want to do this non-nuclear, to go into those bunker-type facilities and stop those processes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
The one thing that's good about it is most of that stuff will stay contained once they are hit, but who's going to hit them? Russia, China, the United States, we're the only ones that have the capacity.
Yeah. And what strikes me odd is moving on to the deal, the between them and the EU and a few others in the United States, is every time of the United States or one of the others turn and say they're going to walk away, Iran says no, 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 no. We'll work this out. We'll agree to these terms, and it's almost to where it would be acceptable. And this is what I've been reading about today. So they get so far as they'll agree to certain terms, and then they make some demands. And so, and then of course, no, that's not what they want. And it's really, they just want no inspectors. They don't want any other country checking and babysitting on them. and they don't want the heavy sanctions. And so, of course, that's looked at, and they
Elly?
say, yeah, go ahead.
So they're kind of like the Wizard of Oz, the guy behind the curtain. So they're like the guy working the levers behind the curtain, and they want the United States to be the curtain for them.
No.
So while we're there, the rest of the world can't be going in and trying to get, and the UN trying to get inspectors in there because the United States is negotiating. It's kind of a sad deal that we're being used that way, and we're letting ourselves be used to a degree.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I think they're playing everybody, and you know, me and you talked about the Iranians and how tough they were, and that they are. Um,
Well, they invented math and game theory. They're the
very
ones that came
smart.
up with chess. They're the hardest negotiators on earth next to the Jewish people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're not. I think they're gonna push this all the way to it's our way or nothing, and that's what they're saying right now. And of course, you know, nobody wants to permanently leave. I mean, do we see like, I don't think we've ever left the table because we've got Kerry over there, and I don't trust Kerry doing these negotiations because he meets privately with them, and I don't think there should be a private conversation. I mean, maybe he's wheeling and dealing, but I think it needs to be all left at the table where we can watch and hear what is said. Um, you know, I don't want no private deals. And see, that's where we were just saying, Iranians and these leaders are very, very smart, very cunning, and they know how to work a deal. And I think they're smarter than Kerry. I don't think Kerry's being smart on this.
Well, Iran used to be the oil spigot for the world. They were the Paris of the Middle East.
Mm-hmm.
They were our friends. They were our ally until this revolution happened. The people of Iran are not bad people.
No, the people aren't. No.
The people aren't. The people want to have what everybody else in the West wants to have.
Now, William,
and
just so you can maybe
not allowing them.
Maybe you can kind of explain this because we've got China, and the people of China are so separate from the CCP, and the same way with Palestinians, they're separate from Hezbollah or Hamas, and we're almost seeing the same thing with Iran, to where there's the people in the government, but this is kind of like, I don't want to say rogue government, but it's like the CCP. Am I right?
So 80% of the population typically will go along with whatever authority is forced upon them.
Mm-hmm.
It's the 10% on one side and the 10% on the other that moves policy. And right now, Iran is on a destructive side, and the people want to go to the other side.
Mm-hmm.
And they're being beaten, thrown in jail, killed, and tortured to maintain this crazy policy that the vast majority don't want, because they don't want the rest of the world coming in and laying waste to these facilities and them in the process, because they're madmen.
Yeah.
Running their country, and they know it.
Yeah.
And they're terrorized by it.
Yeah. And that's what's a shame, because, you know, we have never thought of going in and straightening that out. And, you know, I wouldn't even put it past, there was an Iraq-Iran war. I would not even, I wouldn't be surprised if it went back to a Iraq-Iran war. But that would be way in. I don't think it's going to be anytime soon. But as much
I think it would be an Iran war, civil war.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think what's what's most likely to happen is that pendulum's going to swing all the other way. The Iranian people are proud, noble, for the most part, good people in a very tough neighborhood.
Yeah.
A lot like the Israelis.
Yeah. You know, and we haven't even begun to even try to help Israel in any of this. And not only do they have Iran after them, but, you know, they've got the Hezbollah, Hamas, and Gaza, and the militants there after them. And, you know, they have never they've never went to the United States and said, you know what, come over here and get rid of these guys for me. They've always stood up proudly and fought their own battles.
These militants around Israel are just ISIS light.
Yep.
ISIS is an outgrowth of the Iranian Ayatollah control scheme. And they're going to end up destroying Damascus, wiping out Jordan, making a mess out of Lebanon, taking a big chunk out of Israel,
Damascus,
and starting a major war in the Persian Gulf.
Yeah.
Because they want to.
Yeah. You know, that's what, you know, ISIS has been around for a very, very long time. I mean, there was Taliban, then there was Al-Qaeda, and then pretty much with Al-Qaeda, there was this younger group of radicals that said, you know, a UFO, you just ain't doing what we want you to do, and they formed ISIS. And there was a gentleman that was a part of that, and I wish I don't have the name written down in front of me, but he's the one that led the whole march and became ISIS. And you know, this is a very, very radical group. It's very dangerous. I think even the Taliban and Al-Qaeda has even warned us about ISIS.
So when the Ottoman Empire was at its greatest point, it went all the way around North Africa into Spain, all the way up into Turkey, and trying to make inroads up in through Bulgaria and into Romania. Were stopped there, and then came around and tried to go up into Europe through not Armenia. Anyway, just north there of Italy, and were stopped by the people that held the line in the mountains. And these people of ISIS want that back. They want their caliphate back. They want their crusade back.
Yeah. And
the leaders of in Iran, on the other hand, they want their Great Persia back. The same thing.
Yeah.
You have all these groups looking back into history saying, well, we had it once, we should have it back. And the problem is in 1945, just after the 2nd of August, right after the Potsdam and Yalta conference at the end of World War II, there was this weapon that was dropped, and history changed. And now you can't do that, because if you do that, the planet can extinct itself.
Yeah. And
that's an accident.
And one of the other things is what we were talking about is they were saying they didn't think that Russia would use a big nuclear, but the smaller. And I didn't get the name of it, but William knows what I'm talking about. And they just put a smaller amount, or it could be a type of, what'd you say, chemical warfare, biological, or I think they can put a little bit in. I think it's going to go hypersonics myself.
So they have nuclear weapons of all different sizes, but they have smaller nuclear weapons that can be turned down and turned up, just like you turn a knob on your volume, on your stereo. You can turn one down, turn it up, put it in a missile, and away it goes. and they're called tactical nukes.
That's
Now,
what it is.
they're saying that they would respond if the West used one. We're not going to use one, so they're not going to use one. As long as nobody crosses into the Russian border, there is no reason for it on Earth, even in the minds of the Russians.
Yeah.
They don't want anybody to toss one. We don't want anybody to toss one, because once that starts, nobody knows what the end looks like.
Yeah, and and Putin basically said, well, if the wind blows this way, then we'll just blow it back at you. And I think that's the whole thing. Is there's a lot of threats going on, and Russia says, I'm going to do it, and then NATO says no, we'll get you, and then we have so many that have nuclear weapons that say, we're going to get you. And I really do think a lot of it's just threats. But Putin has a way of, he waits a very long time and then he just strikes. And, like a cobra, kind of watching you for a while. And then when he sees a weak point, strike. And that's kind of what he did with Ukraine. He waited a very long time and then he struck, just like he said he was going to do. And I think he's just doing the same thing. But what we need to do is get in there. I agree with a lot of the UN, what was being said, and that, how about we just calm down, NATO back up, Russia back up, Ukraine back up, and everybody needs to look at negotiations again. And I believe that, and maybe even do some in Armenia, and even, we haven't even talked about negotiations for Taiwan and China. It's kind of on that back. It's not really on the back burner, but it's on simmer for now. I think it's in between simmer and medium heat, and it's doing that little bit of, when you boil water, it's a little itty bitty bubbles that start. And I think that's kind of where it's at. Well, William, do you have anything left you want to? Before I stop, Bill Clinton and BlackRock have been getting together, and they're pushing for this reset that's going on with the World Economic Forum. And this is a bad team to team up together. And I had heard through the grapevine that they had kind of got together, but it looks like they may have teamed up. And now BlackRock is one of the biggest banking system for the world. The United States and a lot of other countries made them that way. And so they're looking at being the one world bank. And now that we have someone from the Clinton Foundation, I think it's I believe it's the first one, or it could be the William Jefferson Clinton Foundation, because it's Bill Clinton. And so they're making plans right now. They're getting together, and they're getting together with the World Economic Forum, and they're all three of them are making plans for this reset. And it has nothing to do with this war thing, but I wanted to jump in, and that would be my tidbit for the end of the night. William, did you have anything? And anybody want to ask any questions? Please get them in right now.
When the UN gets together, all these people that have been by themselves out there in kind of the cosmos of nations, they get together all in one place, and all of a sudden their anxiety goes straight up through the roof, because as a group they recognize the actual danger. And so you see this vacillation like a accordion in and out with stress as these groups get together and leave and walk away, and get together and leave and walk away. Now, what's going on with this ESG? That's what this is called.
Mm-hmm.
And the one world, Western one world cabal, they're trying to usurp all the rights of the people in a way that's outside the purview of the government. Mm-hmm. They want to use the actual backbone of capitalism, to shut out people they don't want and to make winners of the people they do want to do the things they want to do. So they don't even have to that way bribe officials or anything else. They just take control right out from underneath any government and have their one world order, and governments are just left to swing in the breeze.
Yep. And see, the one world banking kind of gets me because Biden came out with that one bill that he wants to sign on taking control of, or have the IRS take control of the banking system. And he wants to sign this in pretty bad. I did it this morning on the news. And so this is worrisome. So, but you know, I don't think they're going to get away with it. I just don't.
These bankers believe that money can buy anything. That money can buy somebody to go for them, go out and take lives. What they don't realize is, although treasure is important, blood is more important, especially not our blood, but their blood. They're putting themselves in a very precarious situation. They're going to have a reaction. And although they think they're in total control of this monster, monsters have a way of controlling everybody else.
Yeah. So now, DB.
Be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Now, DB said, do you understand Biden is not in control? It's his handlers. I think it's not really handlers. I think it's advisors. People like Susan Rice, Obama. I don't think Garland and them have any control over it. I think it's more of a Klaus Schwab and maybe NATO and European leaders that, but at the same, I don't know. I think it's his advisors. And I don't think they're young kids like coming out in the news. I think these are very experienced
They can't be
people.
reasoned with.
Yeah, they can't. No, but I don't think Biden's going to run next term. I think this is, now my opinion is that they're only saying that so no attention is put on Newsom, and they're shining up Pretty Boy to run. And let's all focus on Biden running, and let's not pay attention to Newsom. I think that's all it is, because they do that theatrics, you know, hey, over here, don't look at what's over there. Like you said, behind the curtain. Don't look at what's behind the curtain. Look over here. And I think that's what they're doing. Now, I'm keeping an eye on Pretty Boy Newsom, because I think he's going to be the one that's going to go in, and he thinks he's going to win. They're so conceited and so narcissistic that they think they're going to win with Newsom. They think everybody's just going to like fall, and he's going to be the next JFK. I've even heard that from people in California that said he's the next JFK. He don't even compare. So, do you want to answer that? Do you understand Biden is not the control? It's his handlers. You want to take answer that?
Do I?
Yeah. Who do you think it is?
This isn't a president that has an ideology. And whatever the ends of that ideology are, he's worried more about his people. Now, we may not be his people. So he's going to act for his people. He's going to act in his own best self-interest as the leader he believes himself to be.
Yeah.
Now, whether that includes us, doesn't include us, we have no idea for sure. But it looks not great.
No. So, I wondered if Biden is going to the big economic meeting. Now that we get, I think a G summit, or we, I don't think we have summits coming up. Baskin, DB said, I'm gonna throw it up there. Baskin Robbins is his people. No, I think, at one time he was, well, he wasn't even that good of a senator. Back in the day, I don't even think he was that good. He was very radical in his ideas, and his ideas never really panned out. And everything that he put forth as a bill never made it to the floor. I think because he was too way out there, and they thought of him as like, Crazy Joe. And that was in the 80s. It was Crazy Joe. He just is all over the place. And yeah, for some reason he made it as vice president.
I think he won because the Democrats were terrified of Trump and they needed somebody.
Yeah.
And he turned out to be
it. Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, I don't see any more questions that have come in. And I said what I had to say, and that was about Bill Clinton and BlackRock. Did you have anything left, William, before we close?
Yeah, Clinton and BlackRock are probably salivating because, our attention is on Ukraine, and now, Israel and Iran and China, and they can just go do what they like because they believe our attention's been taken away for these other things. But, we can walk and chew gum at the same time.
Yeah. And there's people like me that pay attention to you. When I see either one, if I see Clinton's teaming up with anybody, there's trouble. But BlackRock kind of, I went, oh no, this isn't a good one because of the world. They want to make the one world banking system, and now they've got Clinton. But I think I just can't see Bill Clinton in the middle of this. I see Hillary in the middle of it. Bill don't care much for politics. And he'll do all the speeches in the world, but sometimes they throw him in there, so it's not always Hillary, Hillary, Hillary. And it's, loving Bill that can get in the middle of this. So, okay, William, I think we had another great week, and it went by quick tonight. It really did. And I thought, oh boy, we're going to be going for forever. I had a lot of notes, but it went by pretty quick. And
it's been an exhausting week.
DB said, good show, Elly and William. Thanks. So William, you want to throw in a song of the week?
I can't think of any this week.
Okay,
mine. I just didn't get one
this was for last week, and I couldn't remember the name of it. But it was a song called Sky Pilots. How high can you fly? You'll never, never, never reach the sky. I can't remember who did it, but it's a really cool song. And it makes me, when I see the airplanes in the Air Force flying, that's what I think of. I think it's an old British tune though, but it's called Sky Pilots. And you probably find it out there on YouTube. Do you know who does it, William? Anybody?
I sure don't.
I have no clue, but it's just a song that I thought of last week, and I was like, I can't think of the name of the tune, so I threw something else out there. But the song was Sky Pilots, and so with that, folks, please, subscribe and hit the bell and and definitely share and hit the like button, and over in Facebook, you'll follow and like. And we're so glad you supported us and watched us tonight. And we'll be back tomorrow morning. And William, you know what? You're great. We're going to end up being like 2 peas in a pod, or maybe 2 carrots in a row. Well, I don't know.
I like the direction you're headed, so
he says the animals did it.
Too. And I really appreciate the opportunity.
Mm-hmm. I just want the truth. That's all. I'm tired of hearing conspiracy theories. I'm tired of being lied to. I just want the truth, and that's what I look for. And boy, I search every morning for it. And DB said the animals did sky pilots. So, did you Google it for me, DB? Is that what you did? So, yeah. So if you've never heard of the song, go listen to it tonight. So, and thank you, Miss Linda. Miss Linda said, good show. So, with that, you guys have a wonderful evening. And like I said, we'll see you in the morning for the morning weather show and news. We don't have a show tomorrow night. And we appreciate William and me and William. If you like our show, we'll be back again next Wednesday if this is what you like to watch. And of course, share the show. And with that, folks, God bless. And we will see you guys tomorrow morning. Bye bye. So good show, William. They liked it.
So hopefully they're not afraid of nuclear weapons now.
No, I don't think so. I think they're learning. I think they're really learning. Yeah. Yeah. And it doesn't scare me because I think the world's different. You know, and it was